just a certain period of her life, and very much deals with the reality of being like a black queer person in America at the time she was alive. And it's just incredibly written. And
hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Accolades conversation series, in which I talk to some of my favorite artists about who or what they would recommend me checking out. Make sure to subscribe to our channel or hit the like button. This episode, again, is in collaboration with Sonic City Festival, a 3-day curated festival in Kortrijk, Belgium, organized by Wel de Westen. This year's edition is curated by Low, Black Country New Road, and Killa Band. Some other bands already added to the lineup are Goat, Dry Cleaning, Le Fille de Gadat, and Coco. Find out the full lineup on soniccity.be. Comfort's setup consists of Sean on drums and Natalie as magnetic frontwoman, backed by wildly oscillating software synths to create music that is direct, engaging, and uncompromising. Their sheer live power leaves audiences excited and wild-eyed, and their energy is infectious, as is the rawness of their messages. Rejecting industry standards regarding how a song is supposed to be written and produced, the confrontational vulnerability inherent in their music reaches for a personal yet queer liberation within a constrictive society. I spoke to Nat from Comfort about Audre Lorde, an African-American writer, womanist, radical feminist, professor, and civil rights activist. She was a self-described black lesbian, mother, warrior, poet who dedicated both her life and her creative talent of confronting and addressing injustices of racism, sexism, classism, and homophobia. As a poet, she is well known for her technical mastery and emotional expressions, as well as her poems that express anger and outrage at civil and social injustice she observed throughout her life. As a spoken word artist, her delivery has been called powerful, melodic, and intense by the Poetry Foundation. Her poems and prose largely deal with issues related to civil rights, feminism, lesbianism, illness, and disability, and the exploration of black female identity. If you are into my illustrations, you can still get my illustration book, Accolades, on craterecords.be. This is what Natalie had to add.
For me, the person I would like to give accolades to is Audre Lorde, who's was a writer, activist, educator who has written all sorts in different mediums. She's written essays, biography, poetry she's really known for. I felt like when you asked me this, there's so many people I could have chosen, but for me, like I just feel like no one has like reached like so deeply into me and like genuinely like changed my life, which is something that I can like wholeheartedly say for her work. Everything she's done, I just think is just so important, and her influence, it just needs to be given the kudos it deserves constantly, especially now because she was a queer woman and it's Pride Month right now when we're doing this interview, and I just feel like she doesn't get talked about as much as she should, because it's honestly like I'm not someone who usually like intellectualizes like why I like art that I like. So it is almost beyond words, like the connection I have to her work. And in terms of like the art I make, it just revolutionized it, like to think that I can see the political elements in all of my relationships and everything that happens to me, write about that and speak power to that, is just like so influenced by the work that Audre Lorde did. Like she wrote a journal called the Cancer Journals, and it was like at the forefront of talking about breast cancer, which wasn't really done at the time. And when I read it, it just blew my mind, because she just contextualizes her experience within the political reality of her time in such a incredible way that it just makes you feel so passionate, and you're just like, oh my god, yes, this is everywhere, everything is like affecting everything, and we need to talk about that. And I'm quite stubborn usually as a person. Like I can be quite like once I've listened to something, I'm very much like, that's me, I'm gonna listen to new stuff constantly. So she's one of the few people who like I do just feel like I will read her work my entire life, because it's just so enriching, and her poetry is just like wow. She died.
Yeah, because you said it's about her time. Like, what time are we talking about then? When those things came out?
She was active from like the 60s onwards. I mean, the 60s aren't a long time ago, so it is still pretty much the same world as much as we like to tell ourselves it isn't. So yeah, it is really just about today, everything she's written, because it's everything she talks about is so relevant.
Yeah, if you have to pick like one of her works.
Oh my god, that's so hard. I would say that the poem is a litany for survival, because that's like I think it's one of the most beautiful poems ever written. And for the book, I would probably go with Zami, which is an autobiography she wrote about like the just a certain period of her life, and very much deals with the reality of being like a black queer person in America at the time she was alive. And yeah, it's just incredibly written, and I just don't think anyone could read that and feel like they're the same person again after.
I want to thank my guest Nat from Comfort for this conversation. This concludes the run of conversations I had with artists playing on Sonic City Festival. Next week I'm going to be talking to somebody completely different, rapper Skyzoo. Again, thanks for listening, and see you next week.